am here.
And be sure to mute the video if you have it up. Yo, this is Beat People Podcast, episode 24. Welcome back. We're happy to be here. We're going to talk about some beats. We're going to talk about some new endeavors. We got a special guest, KK on the beats. Hey, KK, so is it KK on the beats or is it KayKayBeats?
KK, the producer, and beats, all of it is it's totally fine. But
Word.
Yeah.
Word. Well, welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited. Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me.
No doubt, no doubt. And we're just gonna go down the line and kind of introduce the panel, then we'll just kind of get into some stuff and start chopping it up. Ken, you there? He's on mute. So we got Ken Flux.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, there you go. What's up, man?
Yeah, I am here. I'm just, I guess because I'm cutting you off, I'll introduce myself real quick so that you guys can get to more interesting people. Yeah, so I'm Flux of fluxwithit.com, sound designer, now just futurist. So yeah, I'm actually in the middle of renovating a new house, which my new studio will go into and all that good stuff, which we'll get into far in the future. But my video will be mostly muted, and I'll try and mute my voice when I'm not talking so as not to disturb anyone, because I'm actually installing a heating and air conditioning system right now. I'm definitely here and really excited to talk to my good friends here, and it's cool to see KK here as well because I've been a longtime fan as well. So,
no doubt. And we got my man Sam. What's up, Sam?
Hey, Corey. Happy to be here.
Glad to have you, man. And I just want to say while we're live on the air, congratulations on graduating recently.
Hey, thank you so much, man.
And what do you have? You have one of the coolest degrees now. What is it, like experimental science and audio? Something
I now have a master's in fine arts.
Okay.
Master of Fine Arts in the program I was in was called Experimental Sound Practices.
Dope.
Yeah.
That's next level.
Wow.
I feel like you got to do your own show on that or something now.
Yeah.
I'm happy to tell you
basically all that means. All that means, guys, is that he's really good at making fart sounds on synthesizers.
Yeah, that's all it means.
Master fart artist. That's
Oh, man.
And of course, I am B-Boy Tech, Corey Banks, and I run B-Boy Tech Report, BeatPPL.com. Be sure to check us out on those sites. Go and subscribe and follow everywhere that I am. The Beat People on Twitter, Beat People and B-Boy Tech Report on Instagram, also B-Boy Tech Report on Twitter. Check out the websites, man. Be sure to follow us because we always got the fresh news from our perspective. And I want to say what's up to the people in the chat. Maxwell Modular, what up, Max? Who else we got? Masada, what up, Masada? So Masada's asking what's the topics for the day. So Masada, we're going to talk to KK about some of her new endeavors. And I know we've talked about the Digitakt a couple times, but we haven't done a show since it's been out. So I just wanted to kind of mention some of my first impressions and stuff on that. So we might get into some of that stuff. And we got Low Gain. What's up, Low Gain? And I know Low Gain actually took apart a Digitakt, and that was dope.
Nice.
Ill Real, what's going on? So we got those people in the chat. But so let's get to one of the other things that I want to try to get around to is I just got a Chaos pad, and if you follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen way too much of that over the last 18 hours. And so I've been getting into that, and I'm kind of digging performance effects lately. Part of that stuff started from having the MPCX over here with the XY effects, and then got the Digitakt and wanted that same kind of feel. So I got the Chaos pad, the KP3, not the Plus, but the 3. And then I'm going to be reviewing Sugar Bytes Tornado, which is kind of the software version of those types of effects that I've been using with the MPCX Q-Link. So we'll try to talk about some of all that stuff, or, you know, what other people might be doing for those kinds of things. But let's get down to KK. Like I said, welcome to the show. I invited you because, well, firstly, I want to say you're one of the first people I interviewed in 2012 when I started B-Boy Tech Report. And you were doing some tutorial stuff for, who was it you were doing tutorial stuff then?
It was like MPC tutorial, something like that. It was like dash.com. not as active now, but yeah, I was doing some MPC tutorials back then.
Yeah, so I was around that time, I was always checking out when you were doing your beat videos and stuff. But then with the people who started MPC tutorials, I said, yo, I'm starting this site. Why don't we do a series of interviews with the producers that do tutorials for you guys? And you were one of them. And I just pulled up the interview and realized, wow, it was back in like December of 2012. So that was a good long time ago.
Yeah.
What you been into since then?
Yeah, just growing musically, getting like deeper into it. I'm still putting up stuff on YouTube and stuff. But yeah, just getting deeper into analog back then. Like when you're interviewing me, I didn't have one piece of analog. I got like the Moog Little Fatty, and that changed my life, my entire world of making music, electronic music anyway. So yeah,
Dope.
so that's I like. So yeah, for sure.
So, you know, what's interesting about that is because probably around that time, no, I think I had one analog thing, and it was the Dave Smith's Mofo. And
Okay.
I've since gotten rid of that, but that was my first analog synth. I may have had it around that time, but yeah, I've noticed that your gear situation has grown. I thought I had a problem. But I dig you kind of like Sam in that regard. You guys have like the vintage synth and sampler museums at your spots.
She's got a video up where she walks through the house or whatever, and it's probably from a while ago, but she walks through the house, and yeah, it looks like a good time.
Yeah, no doubt. So, KK, what you working with over? Like, what's one of your favorite pieces that you got over there?
Wow, my favorite.
Yeah, I gotta know that.
For sure. That's definitely my favorite. I love the analog keys. I know you got rid of the analog 4, but that's definitely one of my favorites as well. I have Bass Station 2 is dope too. I enjoyed that. I mean, this Oberheim Matrix 1000, amazing. It's really pads and filling in really cool like textures, you know. But yeah, the Bass Station 2 is so cool because it's got like the vintagey sort of sounds, but it's also really like fresh and new. If you listen to like that new house, that electronic stuff that's happening, like that's really cool. You can also integrate it into like there's like that new trap sound as well, and I think it's a really great, like it's really versatile. I think the Bass Station 2. I love that.
I agree with that. Actually, I had it for a while. It was one of my favorite synths that I had, but you know, I couldn't. I didn't wind up keeping it just because when I noticed I didn't use it as much, and that was the same thing with the Analog 4. I really like the Analog 4, but you know what happened is I reorganized my studio. It was initially the front end to my modular, and like I would use that and my modular and all that stuff together. But then when I reorganized my studio, it ended up in the box for a little while, and time passed, and I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? But I dig it. What were you gonna say, Ken? You there?
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I'm just muting myself so as not to annoy everyone. No, I just wanted to say I have a Matrix 1000 also, and we were trying to talk about it before the show, but I didn't really get to hear you. Did you say whether or not you had gotten the updated ROM chip for it and the to be able to control it from stuff like iPad and all that?
No, I haven't. I've been meaning to, but it's got really great presets.
Yeah, I've been using Patchbase on iPad to edit it, and it actually works really, really well, and you have complete access to all the matrix parameters. So if you dive into that thing, the actual modulation matrix inside of that rivals, you know, most of the top new synthesizers that are coming out today. So it's really, really powerful. And I mean, you can get those instant like John Carpenter sounds, but when you start diving in, oh, you can do some amazing stuff with it.
Exciting. I don't have an iPad. I wonder if there's like the desktop version, isn't there?
I don't know if they have a patch base for desktop, but everybody should have iPads because you can get like older ones for so cheap now. It's like we were actually talking about this the other day, and it kind of ties into one of the topics about the iPad stuff or Chaos Pad stuff that we were talking about. But basically, you can get like an older iPad and like an Alesis IO dock or, you know, any one of those things. And, you know, for dirt cheap these days,
I'm sorry,
and use it as a dedicated effects box.
You know what's funny is Logan just said in the chat, buys Matrix Brute, uses an iPad to edit. Come on, Ken.
No. Let me just be very, very clear. We're not talking about the Matrix Brute. We're talking about the Matrix 1000, which has no knobs or faders or anything on it. Yeah. Which I'm sure Logan knows that, but you know, the Matrix. The Matrix Brute is 100% hands-on. I'm addicted to that thing in the worst way.
Yeah, man. So, so KK, have you had a chance to put your hands on the Matrix Brute?
No, I haven't. No.
Oh, you gotta. If you love, and this is like the ultimate modern classic of a synth. I only spent 3 days with it, and I almost shed a tear to you know, part with it. And Ken can't seem to get his life together because of it.
This is literally true. Like, we've had discussions, you know, Corey and I, we talk daily, and the conversation was basically that I was struggling to get any work done because I had moved my Matrix Brute off of my Rhodes, and now it sits directly in front of me. So the problem is that every time I come into the studio to work on something else, it's staring me in the face, and I turn it on, and I end up losing 3 hours making patches on it.
Wow.
It's crazy, but I can understand it though. It's one of those pieces. Hey Sam, okay, let me go to Sam. I'm gonna put the camera on Sam. So everybody take a look at what Sam's got going on behind him.
Oh my God.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Right. It's crazy, right?
12.
Yeah, I've got the 12 and the 1200. You know, I'm still way into the Emulator 2 and the MPC. I can't get enough of the Handsome Audio Zulu, which is sort of the newest thing on this rack. And then, you know, I don't know how quickly I'm going to take a look at Digitakt, but I still think that the Machine Drum UW is one of the best samplers out. Yeah, I have a great time with this stuff. The Avalon Bassline is a really, really awesome mono synth. It's so underrated. I think everyone should check it out. I had wanted a Oberheim SEM, which I still think is a great value, the ones he has out now, but I wanted a vintage one for forever, and I've wanted a 303. And with the little SEM filter cartridge, it's like a little Nintendo cartridge that you can put in there. I just have a switch, and I switch between them, and it's like I have both synths. I'm so stoked on it. I love it.
Dope. Yeah. So yeah, you know what, Sam? I want you to come back when we have Langston on, who created the Zulu, because we're going to get into that. I know Ken wants to talk to him at that point too. But out of all your samplers over there, what's your joint?
It's got to be the SP1200, man. Yeah. I mean, I still make a lot of beats on it all the time. You know, I use them all together. I'm crazy. You know, I know that a lot of people. I know that, you know, a lot of people might, you know, use just like one piece and make their whole beat on it. But you know, with MIDI, you can just link them all up and have the whole thing go together. You know, mix all your different flavors. It's the way that I make music, and it's the most fun to me. You know.
You know, you brought one of those over to my place. Was it the 12 or the 1200? I can't remember.
I brought the 1200 over. Yeah, okay. Yeah. And you got the. We tested up the 1200 with the Zulu, which was just completely ridiculous. I think that we both agreed.
We should have videoed. We for those out there, this was dope. That was a dope night, actually. So we had the Zulu next to the SP1200, and it was direct opposite of the MPCX sitting across the way from it. And then we had Mark St. Regis here from Studio Electronics. And he had brought one of his new modules over that was like, it's the only one in existence. And it sounded great. I was able to hold it down for like a month. And it's gone now. I weep a little bit about that too. But at any rate, we did this A/B. We sampled some drums into, or did we sample it to the X, or we already had those things in the X?
I think that you had, correct me if I'm wrong, some of your sound pack content that you've got on bboytechreport.com loaded up in the MPCX, and we round trip sampled it through the 1200, pitched it down, Well, actually, I'm sure that I made you pitch it up on the way in. We pitched it back down.
Yep.
Through the Zulu, and I think that it was unanimous that was
It was so dope. Those drums were so ill after that, which kind of, you know, the only reason I have an MPC 62 is because I couldn't find a reasonable SP 1200, and I just wasn't willing to pay the amount for it at the time. And then, but you know, as time goes on, it only goes up. So
the MPC is crazy though, and
if you
upgrade the sampling time, it's got, you know, easily twice as much as a 1200. So
it does.
You know, it has its own place. It has its own stuff going on. It's different to make music on it, but you know, there's just so much more. The MIDI sequencing on it is still great. One of my favorites ever. I think that the 60 and the 60 Mark II are totally legit samples.
They're
not 1200s, but they're
right, of course. Hey, KK, what's your go-to sampler right now?
Oh, my go-to sampler. I have my SR10 right here because I've been using this a lot. I've also been using the APS 16 Plus a lot as well for those crunchy drums. But yeah, I love the SR10 because I'll often I'll record like a serum patch or something, or like a spider patch, and just run it through it, down sample, you know, crazy effects, and it just sounds like something totally new, and I love that. So that's definitely what I'm using it for now.
Dope. So are you did I hear you mention that you're getting into sound design, or is that more for your production?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I think as a producer these days you have to do your own sound design if you want, you know, improve, I guess. You know, I've been doing freelance sound design for Ableton recently, so that's been really a cool opportunity. And
dope. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Hey, so looking back at the interview that we did in 2012, I asked you, who do you look up to when it comes to beat making and production? And you mentioned DJ Premier, Pete Rock, Jay Dilla, but you also said, you know, you enjoy some of the contemporary sound inspired by Neptune's, Illmind, Kanye, Justice League. Is there anybody new on that list nowadays?
Wow, that's a really good question. I've been really getting into like the new sort of like the electronic side, because those guys are really technical with their stuff, you know? So even if it's like inspirational to hear like how they do, you know, there's like a ton of tutorials online, obviously, and I've been really diving into that type of stuff. But yeah, I've always been Sil, and he's like really, you know, expanded or changed his sound a bit, and I like that too. So do you know 20 Sil? He's like in France.
20, yeah, you know what, because I've never heard anybody pronounce it, I did not recognize it, because I just, what's it, 20 SY?
Yeah, yes. I think his name is Sylvan, so it's like Vencil.
Yeah, he's ill.
Oh, Vencil, because man's like French for 20.
Yeah.
Dope. Yeah, I remember hearing I got up on him. This is how it was, kind of by mistake. It was just happenstance. I was watching TV and there was some commercial, and I used to love this track. The beat would come on, I'd be like, yo, whoever licensed that beat is an ill producer. And so I what do they call it? Shazammed it. and he came up, and ever since then I've been following his music, and I even went and bought that project that beat was on. He's a very technical and soulful even producer.
Yeah, soulful, exactly. Like Hocus Pocus, his band that he was in, like it's like jazzy and just still definitely an inspiration to me for sure.
I believe that he was also in C2C, which was a turntablist group, and they won the team competition in the DMC year after year. They really had a streak there.
Dope. Yeah. So KK, tell us a little bit about your website. I want to, you know, put people up on what you're doing. It seems like you got some new endeavors going on there with your website.
Thank you. Yeah. So I have a site where I'm selling tools for producers, like drum kits, construction kits as well. And I've been working with my partners on this project called Muse Crate. And Muse Crate, the heart of it is to help producers and artists get started for like a low price, but with tons of like stuff to get them started. So every month you get 30 tracked out beats and then you also get 2 VSTs for the producers. And we're gonna start it, and also like website stuff to get your branding going and like set it up for you. So I remember when I was starting out, I was like, how do I sell my beats? How do I, how do artists, like I have artist friends who want to do that for artists who want beats, and they don't, how much is a tracked out wave file for like most of these beat producing people, like $70 at least, but for $9.99 a month, you get 30 tracked out beats, and that means you can have so much control over, what you want to use. We're gonna launch, but we decided to add something really cool to it, so that's in development. So we're gonna hold off on that a little bit, but early access is still available. Access is basically for $24.99. You get the entire year for just that. So you get 360 tracked out beats and like dozens of VST, website templates, and Photoshop tools. So we're seeing this, it's for some, but like for not just producers and artists or clothing designers, anybody. You also get free website hosting. So we want to really make it like a 360 thing to help a lot of people.
So it's like a 360 sort of media one-stop shop type of deal. Now, you said something interesting. You said 30 free tracked out beats. Break that down to me. I mean, it sounds intuitive enough, but I just want to be sure I understand it right. I pay $9.99 or whatever it is per month, and you you make available to me 30 tracked out beats for my sampling or for my study or for what?
It's for artists. It's not for it's not a construction kit.
Okay. It's for artists to record their songs and stuff over?
That's the license for that, yeah. So it's unlimited sales as well, because a lot of the people are selling like up to 2,000 sale price, It's unlimited sales. It's not exclusive, but for most artists, that's totally fine. And for
sounds like a ridiculously good deal. Honestly, Corey showed me this, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago, and I was kicking myself at what a brilliant idea this is. And all I could think about was like, this is such an amazingly good deal. And I'm not saying this as like an advertiser, because I have no ties to this whatsoever. I'm just literally saying, like, I was blown away when I looked at the website. We all just kind of talked about it, like Joe and from Sounds and Gear and Upright and Corey and I, like we all kind of talked, and we were all just like, why didn't we think of this? This is brilliant.
Thank you. That's awesome. Awesome. A part of it's too. Like, yeah, we are really excited about this, and like I said, it comes from a place of wanting to help out producers and artists. Yeah, so we're also adding something really cool to it, and we're still trying to figure out, like, we want to give as much as possible, so we're trying to figure out how we can do that. And
I'll tell you what, my kids, both, my oldest son and my daughter, they both get Loot Crate and Be Beautiful, which are like these, product boxes that they get every month, and they love that kind of stuff. And it got me thinking, when I saw this, I was like, if something like this was around when I first got started, one, it would have been awesome, because back when I got started, people weren't really sharing information. So on that level, it's really cool as a learning tool. But on the level of like the VSTs and the content, and I didn't even realize that it had web hosting too. Like, that's absolutely ridiculous. It sounds honestly like over the top.
Yo, KK, you still there? I think I see you muted. I don't know if I did that.
Yeah, she's muted. What did you do, Corey?
I was typing. But
see, this is
KK,
sexism.
Go to the top of your screen, and once you hover over, you'll see the Google menu kind of come up, and you'll see a mic and all that. If you hit your mic, I think it's muted. I have it on this side, but.
Well, while she's trying to figure that out, let me just say a couple of quick things about it. I guess she's probably just gonna join right back in. Yeah. But yeah, man, I was looking at that, and the fact that like you can get VSTs along with that is so dope, because one, it should cut down on piracy, and two, it kind of gives people a direction on to get VSTs that are dope,
Yeah, so VSTs are super cool because they're going to be on pre-released. We're gonna like develop our own VSTs for this, and it's gonna be really cool. And yeah, I'm super excited about that.
That's dope, KK. This seems like a large undertaking. I know it's going to be a lot of hard work. So, you know, congratulations in advance. Like, how far are you guys off from launch? Are you kind of doing this in phases?
Well, we were, but we wanted to incorporate this big project now that we have to build. And so there's like software development involved. That's kind of like what's taking a little longer to make sure we have exactly what we want to provide, like more value to people. And so hopefully a couple months, hopefully by the end of summer is when we want to launch. Yeah, but early access, so until we launch, that's going to be open. So if you want to do that, you can go to my site, www.KayKaymedia.com, and you're going to see all that. And there'll be much more details about what you get every month and stuff like that. So
dope. So yeah, y'all go check it out. www.KayKaymedia, that's KayKay media.com. Be sure to support and get involved. This is going to be dope. I'm looking forward to seeing this stuff kind of evolve and grow. Now, so listen, about your production, I got to bring this up because I remember when, you know, this almost feels like pre-Facebook, before Facebook became the internet. You know what I mean? But I remember spending a lot of time with a lot of us on MPC forums, and somebody shared one of your videos, was like, yo, she's dope. So they said, yeah, yo, she's dope. But after that, it was all like, I'm single. I wonder if she'd date me. Right. And it kind of ruined the conversation because I think you got on at one point and we're talking about, you know, production and technique and stuff. And, you know, that's kind of a tangent from the question I want to ask. The thing that I thought was dope, though, was that you're a traditionally trained musician, right? Classically trained musician. Piano?
yes, piano.
Okay. So how'd you kind of come, is it just your love for hip hop that you kind of started doing like boom bap stuff, or was that kind of like your influences?
For sure, yeah. So when I went to school for music, and I didn't even realize at that point that I could beats. No one had ever showed me, you know? So I took an electronic music class 101, and, you know, MIDI we learned in Cubase. We were orchestrating in Cubase. That was the class, you know. But then it kind of like opened my world, like oh, make whatever I want. Because in the classical world, it's about sticking to the notes on the page, expressing what the composer wanted, how well you can express that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't really want to deviate too far unless you are making contemporary classical music, which is another conversation. But if you do like more traditionally, stay to like the notes on the page and like the instructions of the composer. So being able to compose my own music was like, oh, wow, really freeing, and I didn't want to do that. And like the first time I made a beat was like I had a friend who had like an MPC, and I was like, whoa, what's this? And he like showed me some stuff, and then, you know, just transferring like the musical knowledge, I guess, in some ways, like together, like composition wise. Making beats was super fun, and MPC is amazing. Obviously, you do anything on it, it's going to sound like a composed piece. It's something that just sounds glued together automatically, and that was really fun. So yeah, that's how I got started, and been doing it.
Dope. Now, were you doing lessons at one point? Was it beat making lessons or piano lessons or something? I seem to remember something like that. I could be totally wrong though.
Oh yeah, I was a piano teacher. Is that what you meant? Like
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I remember you doing, kind of like the whole beat making thing, but it seemed a little more polished than typical, which I think made your compositions a lot more polished. So that was dope. Yeah. So what was your first MPC though?
Yeah, the 2000 XL. That was the first one.
XL? Okay. Actually, that was mine too. What about you, Sam? First MPC.
My first MPC was the 60.
Yeah.
I also really love the JJOS MPCs. you know, 1000 and 2500. But the 3000 is dope as well. If you got one for sale, hit me up maybe. Yeah.
Get the rack. Get the S3000. It's like way cheaper. So.
Oh, the rack.
Yeah, the rack.
Yeah. I don't know. You know, I love the MIDI sequencer. You know, like I have all these rack samplers and keyboards and stuff that I really like to sequence. Is Ken sighing at me?
I don't know if that's a drill or if he's just heavily sighing. I'm not sure.
I'm sorry. No. I didn't realize I had unmuted. I'm sorry. I'm like I said, I'm actually installing an air conditioner for my new house.
Oh yeah.
So I was adjusting the refrigerant charge. But yeah, as far as the MPC versus the rack units, I kind of, those things are such a good value, the rack units. I started on a 2000 XL and also using the 2000 Classic, but the 2000 XL is like my baby. Like it was literally in the room with me when both of my older kids were born, or actually all three of them.
I thought you were going to say conceived, but whatever.
Maybe. No, but no, like actually in the room at the hospital when I had my kids. Which is yeah. I was making beats in the hospital, like no lie. Because like I knew I was having a kid, so, and I knew I was like, you know, I wanted to be there for my wife and for the baby, but at the same time,
like, I guess we, you know, I'm gonna have something to do.
Yeah, like I mean, like really, all I needed was like, so the 2 weeks before we went to the hospital, like I knew, you know, she was going to be due any minute. I spent a bunch of time just sampling my vinyl collection, and so I had like zip disks just filled with like unchopped sampled material. And when it came time to deliver, you know, we had the baby bag and I had my MPC bag. I grabbed it, we went. Like there's pictures of me in the hospital with it. my wife is not super proud of that, by the way.
I can imagine.
They were a long time. So, yeah.
Well, listen, when my wife was giving birth, there was not any time to do. It was like get in there. It was like a damn race at the, you know, Indy 500. It just seemed like everything went super quick. I wouldn't have had time to do anything like that anyway.
Oh yeah, well we were there for a while, and you know, so it was pretty chill. But I used to take my MPC with me everywhere. Like I had a power inverter in my car, and I had like a AM FM adapter for it. So like I remember I had this old like 1998 Monte Carlo, and I used to make beats in it with a power inverter plugged into the light socket. Yeah, I was all about making beats wherever I could. But
hey, one of the dudes in the chat said that you have a Eurorack AC unit. That's
AC unit.
Yeah,
that's a heater. That's a heater.
Unit. That's a heater.
That's a heater.
Yeah. So yeah, but what I was trying to say is like, so, you know, when I started making beats, like kind of like what I was saying about the Muse Crate thing, like I was broke. So whatever I could do to, like, you know, the MPC 2000 was not cheap, you know, when it first came out. Like it was close to $2,000 or so. Mm-hmm. So I kind of got the come up on it, and that's a whole nother story that I won't get into. But I wanted the 8-outs and I wanted the effects card. So what I ended up doing was getting a used rack mount S3000 XL. And the S3000 XL is the exact same as the MPC 2000 engine, and it uses the same effects card and same 8-out board. So what I did was I bastardized it. I took the board out, I took the 8-outs out, and you know, I made up a new ribbon cable and I plugged it in. I think I actually fried my MPC at one point, but I was able to fix that too. But those rack mount units are a steal, because if you get like a S950, you can get that MPC 60 flavor.
They're not exactly the same. I mean, they're both really nice samplers, but they don't exactly sound exactly the same.
They're pretty extremely close though. I mean, the workflow is definitely different. That's the biggest consideration. But if you're doing something in a modern workflow, to me, what I'm finding is working with the old rack mount samplers that give you that same sound, and then MIDIing it up to more modern sequencers and resampling and that sort of thing is kind of, you know, a very valid solution.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's maybe worth mentioning too that the racks in some cases do things that the MPCs do not. So, you know, it's possible to have, you know, lots of like really nice polyphony and stuff like that. That
get into like multi-sampling and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, so you know, this is kind of, I want to segue into Ken's favorite new piece, the Digitakt. KK, have you checked out or been following the Digitakt thing?
Yeah, I've been watching like demos and stuff online. It looks really cool. It's like, yeah, I mean, I love Electron, so I would down my radar for sure. So yeah, I would love to hear what more you have to say about it. For sure.
Well, so I think, well, on a couple of previous shows before it came out, Ken, you know, I was interested to see what was going to happen with it. I kind of knew ahead of time I'd be getting one to help with the launch. Then Ken, on the other hand, is not impressed with it. And I can understand that. I mean, everything ain't for everybody. And I know at one point, Sam, you were talking about getting one, right?
I don't know about that. I definitely, I'm definitely checking it out. You know, I follow all the Electron stuff. You know, I have for a very long time. You know, after trying all of the rest of Electron's other samplers, you know, from the machine drum to the Octatrack and now the rhythm, you know, I definitely can see that Digitakt does some things that I would want, such as the newer sequencer features with the MIDI output. Mm-hmm. But at this moment, you know, I've got a lot of samplers, man, and like it's one of those things where I gotta figure out, you know, exactly what it would actually do for me. It definitely, huh? Sorry.
Really portable. That's like one of the.
Yeah.
That's
really portable.
That's true. I've been loving the Volca sample and stuff. The Digitakt, it does not run on batteries, if I recall correctly.
It does not. So, I think that was a huge miss, honestly. Of all the things that I like about the and like I said, full disclosure, right? I did kind of help with the launch as far as like, you know, being one of the first people to kind of give first impression review type stuff. But I'm not in any way paid by Electron or anything.
You
like
corporate shill.
Right. But the thing is, I honestly like it. I've found myself drawn to it quite a bit in my studio, so much in fact that I went and got the Chaos Pad for it. I think I like it because it's quick, simple, and you know, it's fast. Like the thing about it, I could easily see taking this with me somewhere, you know, when I travel and stuff. And it's so quick and easy just to sample something in. I think it's kind of like a modern old school sampler, right? But with some new tricks. It's not like super feature rich, but it's quick to get your ideas down, and it's got enough of that almost synth driven mangling in it, or sound design type of features in it to make, you know, make it fun to be able to kind of get some different train of thought into your production.
You know, I do appreciate an Electron sampler that has, you know, actual audio ins for sampling, which the rhythm doesn't have. And I do appreciate that it has actual MIDI out from the sequencer, which the rhythm also does not have. And, you know, that's great. And they also have threshold sampling, which is something that, you know, definitely the way that I'm used to working is a huge plus. So it's got some stuff going for it. One thing that I don't know how crazy I am about is the idea of using overbridge in order to get more outputs from the thing. If you know what I mean, where, you know, with all their other machines, you can, you know, just plug it up to your mixer or audio interface, whatever. And with the Digitakt, I guess, to get the individual voice outputs, because it only has a physical stereo output.
Hey, can I just be clear about something?
Yeah.
Because Corey kind of threw me under the bus, and I just want to be clear.
Under the bus. There's no bus.
A little bit. I just want to say it's not that I don't like it. It's just that it's not for me, I don't think. I think it looks like a great entry point into their into their marketplace, into the whole electron scheme of things, and getting used to their way of sequencing and all that kind of stuff. Looks great for that kind of stuff. It just doesn't look like it for me. One, the lack of battery power for something like that. I do agree. I think that was a miss. The other thing is that it's for me. I don't really particularly think the pad layout and just the way it's laid out looks inviting to me. But that being said, it doesn't look terrible by any means. It doesn't look like something I would rail against. It's just, to me, there's other products on the market, price range that will, you know, kind of entice me a little bit more. But does that mean I think it's bad? No, not really. I just don't think it's for somebody who maybe already has a whole bunch of gear.
Yeah, you got a good point there, Ken. I could honestly say, having it on my desk, I find myself making a decision like, what am I working with? You know what I mean? What am I working with today? However, the other day I did find myself kind of triggering it too from the MPCX and running the outs into the MPCX and kind of making things a little bit.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, Corey, is you know, I had the rhythm, and the workflow of it wasn't, you know, some people love Mac computers and some people love PC and they can't stand the opposite. Well, that's kind of how I felt about the rhythm. Like, I didn't really particularly enjoy the sequencer. I didn't like the way that they handled workflow on it. I thought it sounded phenomenal. It's like probably the best sounding analog hybrid drum machine I've heard. The Tempest, because I liked the workflow on it more. So, and you know, I'm far from a Tempest like blind lover on that either. But you know, so it's one of those things where it's also like I look at that workflow and I say, well, I've tried that workflow before. It really wasn't for me. I don't know if this is for me. But I've been seeing the stuff that you're doing with the Digitakt, and you seem to really enjoy it, and that's great for you. But I'll step off to the side.
No, I definitely understand that. You know what? I think that's one of the things about the Digitakt and electron gear in general, really, right? It's a learning curve to it. It's definitely different from, you know, especially from like people in our world with the beat making and boom bap and the hip hop. I mean, it's either machine or MPC, right? Or some other vintage sampler. So when you get into the digital, I mean, the electron stuff, they have their own way of doing things. And, you know, it causes you to think a little differently, and it can be a learning curve if you're not quite ready for it.
Yeah, I will say I do appreciate things that they've put into the Digitakt, where on the rhythm and their machines in the past, mixing without like an external mixer was a little tedious. You had to, you know, page through all the different instruments or parts or whatever the electron terminology is, and then individually adjust their levels. Where the Digitakt seems to have a mode where you can just actually have the 8 little encoders control the levels. Another thing that I forgot about the overbridge thing is that it's now paid for the Digitakt.
Oh, I don't like that.
I don't like that either. I don't like it at all. It's, you know, that certain features like the individual outs don't happen without the overbridge, and you have to pay for it. You know, it definitely, the lack of the battery, it doesn't strike me as such a portable piece without it being battery powered, because you got to plug it in somewhere. Where, you know, your Volca sample or something like that, you can just pull out of your bag, throw on headphones, and, you know, wait around somewhere and play with it. Where, you know, the Digitakt, you know, it's gonna be a whole operation. So that's one of the things. So that the mixer you were talking about, it's called the master section. So there's function master. And yeah, you can use the 8 encoders there to kind of mix the track and make things sit nicely the way you might want them to sit. That's dope. I would argue that you need that if you don't have individual outputs.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. You definitely need that. The other thing is, I wish there was a part in there where there was like a master compressor or something to kind of glue things together, or just to kind of pump things a little bit. Would be kind of cool. But I'll tell you the
heat,
way,
man.
Yeah, so that's right. You got heat.
That's right.
And that's what I've been pairing it with. Like I said, if you follow my Instagram B-Boy Tech Report, you'll see that I've been using heat with Digitakt, and just recently added the Chaos pad. And that's such a crazy trio. I mean, it's just crazy because you got this sampler that you can jump right in real quick and, you know, do some pretty banging stuff, and plus the MIDI effects on it is what I think I'm really drawn to, because that's not on the MPC, right? So I'm saying, like, what are those things that I love, like the
XY effects?
Yeah, the XY effects I love on the MPCX. I definitely love that. But on the Digitakt, you have trigs, and where
trig conditions.
Yeah, the trig conditions and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I love that because you can make a simple. Here's the thing with producing hip hop, you'll tend to make a 4-bar sequence that can be simple and monotonous sometimes, and that's good, especially with me coming from a background as an MC, right? But then too, when you get more into beat making and want to kind of compose your beat a little more and flip things, you can make a track that's rather simple but dope. But then with the trig conditions, you can start to freak the beat a little more, and freak the beat in a way that the machine is doing the freaking for you. You know what I mean? So I think that's real dope. But yeah, the combo is fresh.
Corey, I have a quick question for you, since you have the new MPC and the Digitakt. So the Digitakt does not have a song mode?
It does not have a song.
Yeah, but it will, like the other Electron machines, from my understanding, follow program change messages.
I haven't tried that, but I do think it will.
So I think that if you can sequence program change messages from your MPC, like you can on the vintage MPCs, you could essentially have a song mode happen in Digitakt.
You can also you can chain patterns together. I saw our good friend Logan commented about that the other day on Facebook. So
I think, was that a part of the update too? Because the update just came out the other day. Was that a part of the update?
Don't ask me. I don't have one.
I think, and he said that right around the time the update came out, so that may be something at the update. So speaking of the update too, though, one of the things that the Digitakt had a problem with, I don't know if MIDI needed some cleaning up. The MIDI implementation needed some cleaning up. So there was some weird things, like you couldn't record MIDI notes from an external keyboard, but you could. You could record MIDI notes into the Digitakt sequencer using the chromatic mode, right? So you could go chromatic mode, and it's 16 pads, or the 16 pads turn into like a keyboard, and you can do octave up and down. So you can record and control the external keyboard that way. Now you could do it both ways, from the external keyboard or otherwise. The other thing is there's 8 MIDI tracks and 8 audio tracks. The 8 MIDI tracks will allow you to record up to 4 MIDI notes at a time, simultaneously, play 4 MIDI notes simultaneously, so you can get chords and stuff off. But then what was happening initially on the first firmware is you could only record 1 note by playing, then you had to go into the screen and program the other notes, which was just weird. So now you can just play the notes in there and stuff. So
well, let me just say
you can play polyphony like that, Corey?
From what I understand, I haven't tried it yet, but that's what I understand from the notes.
I'll agree that, like, as producers, we get frustrated when we see boxes like this and like Rhythm and like Tempest and all these things. They come out and their external MIDI capabilities seem to always be kind of neutered and just weak. And it just, like, it feels like coming from the days of the MPC, like 2000s and whatnot. And then you see a lot of these modern boxes and you're like, why are we stepping backwards MIDI wise? It's really driving me nuts.
You got a good point there, Ken. I mean, yeah, there's some things that should just be at the basis of like all these joints should do. Like the MIDI implementation, I don't even know why like for instance, I got a JX3P over here. It's understandably remedial in terms of MIDI. You know what I'm saying? But it's Roland's first MIDI keyboard. Understandable. I can do some upgrades to it and make it do what it needs to do. But when there's all these new things coming out and there's always MIDI problems or not so well developed MIDI implementation, that is kind of crazy. I don't know. I think they get so rushed.
I've talked to different hardware developers about it. Like I've had conversations with hardware developers and drum machine developers multiple times about this, and like I know that there are certain reasons for it, and I understand it, but it's still frustrating because a lot of the times it'll come down to price point of processors that are used, and that's But I'm looking at these old units and they do this. It's like, it should just be, it shouldn't be a caveat or something on the chopping block to me. It should be, okay, this is what needs to happen. Let that kind of partially dictate your price point in a way. Like, to me, stepping backwards, just, it really shouldn't be the option.
Do you think it's them stepping backwards, or do you think that that's one of those things people take for granted, that because it's been around so long, they don't think about it, they forget about it, or it becomes one? Because then they end up doing it like in a firmware update, like right away.
Look, I was really excited about a certain sequencer. It was very hyped. It was definitely hyped up for its MIDI capabilities, and it did no MIDI. No MIDI day one. You needed to have a day one firmware update. I had bought 2 units. It bricked both of my units. Oh. And you know, sorry, I'm done with the company. It's not. They're not coming back from it in my mind. You know.
That's so understandable, though.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the thing that it was advertised to do, it didn't do ultimately. So
even a lot of these ones get these firmware updates, but the MIDI is still, you know, half-assed. Like,
yeah,
a lot of the time, like, it's rare to see a modern, especially, that, you know, and I know that there's a difference between a drum machine and your main MIDI sequencer, but let's be honest, there aren't a lot of main MIDI sequencers out there that are, you know, as capable as something like the older MPCs or the MV8800 or, you know, so forth and so on, going, you know, to these older units. So, you know, I really, when people try to nitpick the terminology like that, it's like, come on, dude, look at the market. You know what's out. Don't be a jackass. Like,
right.
I will say it bums me out that the analog rhythm doesn't have any kind of MIDI output. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just from coming from someone who, huh? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, like, I think I'm like part of the problem, because I actually just track out all of my synths and all the stuff I do, because I think.
How dare you?
Yeah. My creativity, I can just, you know, chop things up really fast, and that's how I do it. And yeah, so I'm sorry about that.
But I don't think that that's the issue, because a lot of the times,
do you track it out into like a
record?
Go for it, Ken.
And is that we'll record the MIDI notes, right? Mm-hmm. And then we'll sample that stuff back in,
right? And
you know, and then work with the audio from there on. So it's like, it's frustrating that you can't do that. And on top of that, I mean, you know, just like Sam said, you know, also the Tempest can send MIDI from the pads. Like, if you touch a pad, it'll send the MIDI trigger out. But if you hit play on the sequencer, it can't send that MIDI out. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, and you know, on the Tempest is particularly kind of a funny thing, because it seems like you would really want to layer stuff up, right? You know, if something doesn't have custom samples, how great would it be to have it trigger your sampler, your 950 or whatever, you know? Right. And so it just, with all those kinds of things, it seems like, you know,
especially when you're dealing with a product that costs, you know, around $2,000, you know, when it first dropped, and you know, anything that's above $1,000, I'm sorry, like, you should be able to do at least 16 tracks of MIDI output. Like,
the Tempest as well. That's supposed to be a collaboration between Roger Lynn, who did, you know, the MIDI production.
Well, I'm not gonna, Sam, I'm not gonna get into this. You know you're gonna get me all riled up, and I'm gonna get all pissed off. And no, I'm not doing it. I'm not going down this road today. I'm trying to stay happy. It's a beautiful day outside.
Okay. Yeah, Ken has blown his wig about that several times because he has the Tempest and he loves it, but there's just so many things about it that are just like, yo, how could they have ignored this? And then there's a lot of things with that. You got to go back in the archive and watch a couple of those shows, and Ken got really deep on it.
I really want the Tempest versus the rhythm, because, yeah, I think I really need an analog drum machine. So I'm thinking like, rhythm, sample, yeah,
rhythm with the samples.
If you enjoy the Electron workflow, go rhythm.
I don't know.
I think personally, I felt the rhythm sounded better, but I like the hands-on control of the Tempest a lot more.
Huh.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, that's a huge thing. I actually want the Tempest as well. I have the Rhythm, and I've had it for a couple years now, and I love it. It taught me the Electron sort of sequencer and stuff. And then after that, I end up getting the Analog 4 and like all kinds of Electron stuff. But yeah, I definitely love it. But I still want the Tempest. There's something about I don't know.
Even with the Prophet 6, you still want a Tempest?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's a drum machine. I mean, yeah, you could sit around and do that stuff on there.
And they are different filters on there too.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what Sam's getting at, because I have a feeling he's getting at something different than just sound.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, well, okay. Well, for a while, I really preferred the sound of the Tempest to the other DSI synths that were out just around that time, and I think part of it had to do with the sounds I was able to get out of it, layering up the digital oscillators and the analog oscillators. And I just think that the Prophet 6 sounds so great in that kind of like sequential sound space that, you know, I'd honestly, well, if I was in Corey's studio, dreaming, you know, I would sample up some Prophet 6 sounds to the Digitakt or something like that.
I just find those two sounds like polar opposites. Like the filters that Dave Smith is using now versus those Curtis chip filters of the Mofo, Tetra, Prophet 8, Tempest, Prophet 12. I'm personally not a huge fan of that chip.
We are in that sense.
I like a lot of the older Curtis chips more than that particular one.
Do you happen to know which one it was in the Tempest?
Not off the top of the head.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I'm kind of not at my studio, but I mean the chips that's in that's all the same chip from the Prophet or from the Mofo and what was it, Evolver, all the way on through to the Prophet 12. Prophet 12 was the last product that they did that used that chip, and then they went to the Pro 2, which used the discrete in it. And they did, you know, the discrete filters in the Prophet 6 and the OB6. So to me, that's just a totally different thing. But I actually enjoy how the sounds as a synthesizer. Like when you start programming it as just a straight up synthesizer, it sounds pretty awesome. Like it's really cool. It's got its flaws, but it sounds really cool.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I had the Prophet 8, just on that topic for a second. I had the Prophet 8 and I had it for a while. I was so stoked to get it in the studio and I used it quite a bit. But then, you know, I think when the Prophet 6 came out and I went to NAMM and played it, I realized that that's what I was hoping I was getting out of the Prophet 8. They sound different. The 6 is more warm and just has a different feel. And I almost felt like, although the Prophet 8 is really dope, there's something about it that there's something about the top end that I don't dig so much. I'm not really sure. It's just one of those things. I found myself using an external filter a lot to give it what I wanted it to have. So, you know, a lot of people love it. I did not love it so much, especially after I heard the Prophet 6. So I sold that and bought the Prophet 6. And it's
PCOs. So like I think that's got that extra something.
Yeah, it does have something extra. It seems more warm, and people use all these words to describe things, and I think you really have to hear it to know it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So,
I definitely am still really impressed with the Prophet 6. I do think that it's something that you need to, like, you know, have a listen and play different stuff and not just go through the patches and things, because when the OB6 was out, you know, I heard it at NAMM, I heard it in some stores, and I was like, you know, it didn't really hit me as hard as the Prophet 6. And then, you know, I had some time alone with it, and then I really, really got, you know, the differences can be pretty pronounced when you're in the right setting.
It's true. It's true. And recently I got to finish editing the video. I got a few review videos to finish editing. One of them is the Toraiz AS-1, which is one voice of the Prophet 6. And I think that joint is brilliant. sounds real good. And Ken asked me, did I do some one-to-one comparisons with the Prophet 6? No, Ken, missed opportunity. So, but I did do the review. I have to edit it up, and it sounds really nice. It has like 7 of the effects that come on the Prophet 6. It's got like 495 presets, but then that's the factory presets. So you have 495 other slots, I believe, that you could do your own user presets. And it just sounds incredible. So, and I keep telling people the classic Pro 1 was one voice of the Prophet 5. And so now you have a desktop version that is one voice of the Prophet 6. So in my mind, it's kind of like the new age Pro 1 desktop version.
That's interesting because it's also kind of like a groove box.
Yeah,
you know, it's got, well, it's definitely a groove box. It's got that sequencer on board.
It's kind of like a TB303 kind of melded with a Pro 1 kind of weird spot, which is cool. You know, it's definitely interesting, but its own control aspect is what I kind of wonder about for that.
Well, you know, it's not a lot of controls on the front end. So I've definitely mentioned in the review that, you know, if you're into having a more knobby synth, that probably wouldn't be the one. Or either you'd probably want to do that, get a controller of some sort, or the sound tower. I can't recall if the sound tower guys are making a controller for it or a VST for it or whatever, an editor. But definitely that, if you're into that kind of stuff, it definitely puts like a really sophisticated sound in your hands for a pretty decent price. But hey, I want to talk to y'all, man, and I mentioned this before. I don't know what you guys do when it comes to performance effects. So I've been racking my brain over the last few years, like about performance effects. And let me be clear, I ain't going to perform nowhere. You know what I'm saying? That may change in the future because I have kind of been thinking about it, but I'm not traditionally performed as a musician. I've performed as an MC in front with the band and a DJ and stuff for many, many years. But now I'm kind of considering later maybe getting out there and performing as a musician with my groove boxes and stuff. But that brings me into this whole effects, live effects and performance effects sort of things. I love the XY effects on the MPCX. If you had the touch, you experienced that too. It was there too. So I've really got into that since I've been, I think it's been like 6 months or so I've had the MPCX. So I've really gotten into the touch effects. And when I got the Digitakt, I wanted that kind of thing. And so that's why I got the KP3. Now, Ken, you had a Chaos pad, right? Is it the 2?
Chaos pad 2. And I've modified it so that it has the hold functionality of the KP3. And I put a video, and I think I did a video. I definitely did an article at least up on my website on how to do it. It's pretty simple, just a toggle switch and a couple of wires. I mean, it costs you like, you know, $2 or something in parts, and you're good to go. A drum will cut through the case.
Hello?
What'd you say?
What's that?
KK?
Oh yeah, I wanted to know, Corey, like, how would you characterize for yourself like the sound of the Digitakt with the sampling? Like, how would you
the Digitakt, I think it doesn't provide a whole hell of a lot of color. I don't think any real modern sampler does, but I can say that some of the top end is maybe slightly colored, you know what I mean? And I guess it could depend on how you drive it. Everything that I've sampled in has been dirty already, so it's tough for me to say. Like, I literally am bit crushing stuff on the way in.
That's what I was about to say, is that, yeah, for me, like, the vast majority of, like, modern samplers that I use, I'm usually running through my Euro rack or some other piece of gear before I send in. But and if I am using something like, let's say, Machine or something, and I'm not using something external, it's like Decimort 2 is so damn good. I use that a ton.
Decimort 2.
I use that.
Dope. So speaking of the Eurorack stuff, though, I was about to put the Dave Smith character module on a chopping block, but I vacillate about that. I'm not sure because it's one of those things. I do like to use that for samples and to you know, sound design and stuff, but I just find that
I use that a ton
lately because
I use it a ton. But there was always something I didn't like about it. hard for me to put my finger on what I didn't like about it, and I finally figured it out. And it was that one, the way it bit crushes, it introduces a lot of noise, and it's not pleasant noise. It's like, explain. Other bit crushers like the Malgorithm 2, Eurorack bit crusher that I've personally heard. That one has like sweet spots all over it. Whereas the DSI one, when you start doing the actual bit crushing, which for the record, I prefer sample rate reduction over bit. The DSI one, when you start to bit crush with it, it gets this weird like noise, like it implements things into the signal that weren't originally there that I don't really like. Whereas the Malgorithm, it just actually like does exactly what you want. But the other thing that I found is that because I think it's running at like a pretty high sample rate, it's clean no matter what. It's clean even when it's sample rate reducing. You still get this clean DAC sound to it. And that's what I like about the old samplers, is that when I'm using these low sample rates and I'm using these low bit rates, the actual converters are junky by today's standards, and they introduce this kind of noise to the signal that's really pleasant to your ear. Like I just recently got a Ensoniq SQ80, and it's 8-bit wavetables through like the same Curtis filters that are on the Prophet VS, and what you do is really low and slow the samples down, pitch them down, and man, it breaks things up in like the most pleasant way ever. And
that's SQ80.
You can't really do that with the DSI. What's that?
No, I was just saying that's the SQ80, right?
Yeah, that's the SQ80.
I mean, when you told me about,
I want to, if it's okay. Oh yeah, if it's okay to jump in, I did really appreciate somebody put up a video that's a sound comparison between the Digitakt and the Octatrack. And I thought that was pretty illuminating in terms of does the Digitakt have like a real like lo-fi sound, or you know, does it react when you push it hard kind of thing. I also agree with Flux. I love the Malgorithm Mark II, and it's worth mentioning that that one is stereo. So it's stereo, but not with independent controls of both channels. So you can control the sample rate reduction and your voltage control it, and your sample rate will be affected on both channels together. And it works really well for me for processing things. My favorite bit crusher or sample rate reducer is still the Oto Biscuit. It's hard to get better than that. But ultimately what I use the most is the kind of thing that Flux was talking about. You know, use a older sampler or synth with analog filters, but you know, a digital front end, slow everything down and get that nice aliasing and filter it up. Like that's absolutely my favorite way to do it.
Yeah, I think that's the reason I've thought that I'll put the DSI character module on the chopping block, because I got the Oto Biscuit and it's a monster of a thing. I mean, I can really get right into almost any classic sampler sound territory.
Do you have the UAD version as well?
I don't. At some point, well, I do have an Apollo, so I can have the demo at any time. At some point, I want to try to do a comparison. I got a few comparison videos I want to do. I want to do the real hardware Oto Biscuit versus the software one. And I'm going to probably, if not this week, but next week, do a comparison video between the MPC 62 and the MPC X. Not for me, but for people that keep asking, how's the MPC X sound? And everybody, when they asked that, they said, does it sound like a 60 or 3000? And I'm like, hell's no, it's not supposed to. You know what I'm saying? So what I want to do is I want to put them side by side, and I'm going to sample the same sample source into them. And then, you know, we'll just play them back, and I'll explain why I think you shouldn't even worry about whether or not the X would sound like a classic MPC. Because if you want that sound, go get a classic MPC. You know what I mean? One of the vintage joints.
I agree, man. I totally agree.
What's Masada type more? You say Corey No with capital letters. Don't do that comparison. Is that going to be the Antichrist? Shout
out to Masada, by the way. He's got a new sample pack. His new cycle kit. I think it just dropped, and it looks really dope. So I highly recommend people go check out his stuff.
Yes. Yeah, actually Masada Cycle Kit 1 through 4. So he just dropped the Cycle Kit, Masada Cycle Kit 4. And from what I'm hearing, it sounded pretty dope. At some point, I think he was going to send it over so I could check it out. I'm going to do a review on it at some point. But yeah, he's getting busy. And I think what's dope is that he's using the MPC Live almost like a field recorder. You know what I'm saying? So he's taking the MPC Live with its battery power with a mic plugged up to it. He's all in the forest preserve and all over the place doing sound design. So that's pretty dope.
Yeah, man, that's one of the things that has me kind of debating on getting both the X and the Live, is for exactly reasons like that, man. It's, you know, like I keep a field recorder with me wherever I go. I actually have one with me right now. I always have a field recorder, but having a field recorder that's also your beat machine, that's dope.
That's crazy, right?
Flux, what is your field recorder of choice?
The one that I always just keep with me is the Zoom H4, H4n, which I've had forever, and you know, it just works. Like, it doesn't impart a ton of character or anything like that. Like, it tends to be fairly clean. If I'm doing really, like, if I'm trying to get serious, then I'll bring out other things. Like I keep, you know, a MacBook Pro, and like I have really nice audio interface. Matter of fact, I have the new Arturia audio fuse, which I believe they just I think they just dropped, or if they finally announced it or what, as far as being available. But I've been on the testing team for that for a while, and preamps on that, you have to hear to believe is the best way that I can put it. Like, it's the flattest and quietest mic pre on it, and that is so like that's including like boutique preamps that are like extremely expensive. Like, it's ridiculous.
And that's dope. And it's taking a while to get out there too, right?
Yeah. It's been in development for over 4 years.
Flux, are the pre's IC based or are they discrete?
I believe it's discrete, and it is a completely new design. It is not. It's not based on any previous design, and that's part of what took it so long to come to market. Is the guy who designed the preamp and everything, like, is kind of a mad genius, and it's totally new preamp design. So it's not like it's not based on, you know, previous things that are out. Like most of the time when you buy an audio interface and it has a nice preamp on it, it's based on something previous. This is a totally new thing.
Word. Hey, let me ask KK, because we always ask folks this at some point. KK, you got a gang of gear over there. I love the studio walkthrough. I actually checked that out, so I knew what Ken was talking about when he mentioned it. The thing I want to know is, have you gotten into modular? Is that a direction you're going to take at any point?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's definitely on the radar, but I know it's a money pit, so
no doubt.
treading carefully, as with my problem that I already have. But no, I love the idea of it, and yeah, it's definitely.
It's only a money pit if you don't have self-control. But of course, none of us have self-control. So
that's
it's a money pit.
That's the problem. Addictive personalities and electronic.
I mean, you could say having a 19-inch rack that's empty is a money pit, because you're like, oh, now I want to fill my 19-inch rack. Yeah. You know, it's the same thing, but it's way more addicting.
Yeah, but no, I'm loving it. Yeah, I would love to. It's really interesting for sure. Like, what you can do, possibilities is definitely really intriguing. But does it like affect your workflow? Do you feel like when you're getting into your modular, you have a melody in your head?
My personal opinion is design your rack in stages for what it is that you're trying to do at that moment. And I was talking to my buddy D Steele of MSX Audio. We were talking about this just the other day. And basically, so if you want like a really badass mono synth, build a badass mono synth. If you want an effects rack, start building your effects rack, and kind of go at it in stages like that. If you want something to be like a powerhouse for effects processing and whatnot, do that. Corey was talking about, you know, performance effects. Probably the most used performance effect that I use right now is my modular, and I have of the Mutable Instruments clouds, and I use them as both glitch and stutter effects and reverbs and resonators. And then on top of that, then I have all the filters and distortions and all that kind of stuff. I use that as my performance effects more than anything else right now.
Yeah, and I'll tell you about Modular where I found myself. I find myself in a modular space that seems to be a little more melodic and less bleepy and bloppy, but you know, I kind of dig both. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I find that I'll play my modular like a traditional synth, but then I'll use the modulation in ways that aren't typical in traditional synth. You know what I mean? So there's so many ways you can go about it, but the thing about modular is that you can make it whatever you want it to be. Now, somebody asked me too, like, yo, the workflow sounds crazy when I just want to create. But for me, I approach creating beats from almost a sound design perspective. So to me, that just kind of plays into it. And I don't find it as a distraction so much as I do kind of like a freeing sort of experience to sound.
And you can pay for it as you go, which is dope. You know what I mean? Like you can buy a $200 module here. You don't have to spend your money all up front on like on a $2,000 synthesizer. You can build a $2,000 synthesizer $150 at a time.
Word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you're Sam Botstein. Unless you're Sam Botstein, in which case you're going to build, you know, a $40,000 synthesizer, $850 at a time.
$850 at a time.
Well, okay, look, I do have expensive taste in modules. That's true, but I would say, I definitely would say, it's important to think about processing with the modular versus synthesis. Like you can easily do both inside the same system at different times or whatever. And I also think that when people are getting into it, they might not build a functional system to begin with. So I think that it's definitely awesome to pay as you go, but it's possible to buy only modules that don't put out audio, or to buy no modulation and then you can't do anything without turning all the knobs individually. So I definitely think that you know, tools like Modular Grid are great for planning. And I would say, you know, maybe check that out, and also check out everybody's threads, you know, Critique My Rack. Before you post one of your own, you know, there's like thousands on Reddit and Muffwiggler and all these other sites. You know, you can just see what, you know, people who have been into it for a while have to say about ideas that people who are trying to build it very first and get into it are proposing.
You know, something else I'll add there. Well, one thing, KK, to hell with us, don't feel no pressure. To hell with modular, because if you ain't ready, don't go there. But here's the thing, somebody mentioned in the chat is that they ain't into modular, but they love those Dave Rossum modules. That kind of thing is the kind of thought that I think, like, listen, there's such a huge, vast world in modular of like sound design and sound palette kind of possibilities that you could literally get like a small little skiff and just fill it with filters that you don't have on your traditional synths or your samplers. And you know what I mean? And like, that's a whole nother thing. Like for instance, when I reviewed the Toraiz AS-1, I also reviewed the Toraiz SP16. Not a huge fan of the SP16 for many reasons, and I'll let you know that when I finish editing that review. But one of the things that I did like about it was that it had that Dave Smith analog filter on it. And I thought that was so dope to have an analog filter that was that rich in sound on a sampler. So like when it comes to modular, like you could literally buy some of your favorite filters that you've always heard about from classic synths and stuff like that, throw that in a small little skiff, and then have that to help process your synths and samplers and stuff. There's so many different ways you can go about it. It's kind of dope.
Yeah, I would say the barrier to entry for something like that is honestly, like you're talking about maybe, like realistically, like you can buy $100 power module, mount your module into a Tupperware container, and then buy something like, say, like the DSI Curtis filter or the Dope for modules, and then maybe like an anti-module line to boost the signal properly. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So
what I'd love to say about that too is, you know, Corey's right. The filter clone game in Eurorack is crazy. There's so much to choose from. There are synths that I had never heard of that have filter clones in Eurorack. And what Fluss is saying is true too. The barrier to entry can be low, especially if you DIY. And also people like Tip Top have been putting out better and better, in my opinion, entry-level stuff. You know, for a long time, their so-called happy ending kit was, you know, a great way to get just, you know, an 84 HP single, like 3-rack unit thing going. And now the Mantis, I think, is a great deal to start getting into it. I think that it's getting easier every year to get into the game.
Yep.
That's it. Yeah, I'm gonna check it out. So.
Yeah, and you know, holler at us if you got questions and stuff. I'm sure any one of us will be willing to answer whatever we might know.
Yep.
But yo, we're gonna circle on back around. We're getting around to that time. I want to thank everybody for coming by. KK, you got anything you want to shout out? Anybody you want to shout out a pub before we get out of here?
Yeah, so just Muse Crate available for drum kits, construction kits, all at www.kaykaymedia.com. So thank you for having me.
Word, and feel free to stop by anytime. You know, I'll reach out to you from time to time, see if you want to chime in on certain topics that I know you might have a piece of gear there, a few pieces of gear that you may have some expertise or either some opinions on. So I'll holler from time to time.
Thank you.
And, word, no doubt. And Kenneth?
Yeah, so 8-Bit Dipped is the most recent sample pack that I put out. It's machine compatible, but of course it's WAV files and you put it in any drum sampler and all that good stuff. So do that. I would also say I got a bunch of videos and stuff coming out. Just check out fluxwithit.com and support.
Oh, did you cut off? Okay. Oh, hey, Pete Marriott's in the house. What's up, man?
Pete came in just to say bye.
What's up, Pete?
We're literally saying peace. Well, who you want to shout out, Pete?
I want to give a shout out to Handsome Audio for making the greatest analog tape simulator, passive analog tape simulator, Zulu.
Word.
I also want to give a shout out to Akai Professional for the MPCX.
Yes.
I also want to give a shout out to Waves. Shout out to Isotope. I'm now Isotope family.
Oh, congrats, man.
And I want to give a shout out to Beat People.
Yo.
And the Producers Hangout.
Yes, sir.
KK on the beats. I've been a fan of yours for a long time. Amazing.
You.
You're amazing.
That's amazing to hear that. Thank you. Appreciate that.
I want to give a shout out to Sam Botstein.
Thanks, man.
For putting me onto Waveboy. That's all I got to say.
No, word. So Sam, what you got, man? What's going on with you as we get out of here?
Sorry?
Well, who you got? Anybody want to shout out any last words?
Yeah, sorry, cut out for a second. You can find me at puremind.com on the Mentorship Network.
Puremind.
Word. Yeah. Yeah, that's a dope thing. I like that y'all doing that, man. I've actually, what's interesting is that I've been getting people hitting me up wanting me to do similar things. So I may start one-on-one, not mentoring sessions, but, you know, consolations. I don't know, you know, holla at me. Let's talk. For fee. we could learn something. I could, you know, whatever. So yeah, what I'm gonna say as we get out of here is be sure to check out beatpeople.com. We still got Beat People t-shirts and we got sample packs up there. I think my favorite sample pack that I've done to date is probably Chicken Kit. And it sounds crazy, but it's dope as hell. You'll love it. You should go get it. The other thing is there's Analog Boom Bap 2 is coming. And I have a kit called Dusted that's coming as well, and some other plans, but I've been so busy with hardware, I haven't had a chance to really finish those things off the way I want to. So yeah, then I have Modscapes. So I made a sample pack called Modscapes. It's got like 30 or more soundscapes from my modular rack that you know, that you could use to sample and chop and create whole new soundscapes. I mean, you could use it to sample little pieces out of to make one shots of like effects type things, or you could use it as textures and you know, things to kind of lay in the background, or either kind of sci-fi stuff like that. So yeah, check that out. That's called Modscapes Volume 1. Volume 2 is already on deck. It's actually done. I just need to put it out. And yeah, be sure to subscribe to all of us and follow us on all of our networks. This is the Beat People podcast. We don't beat people. We are beat people. Peace. Until next time.
Peace.